All right, let's get into the incredible story of John Prounstar, a character you probably know as Thunderbird. So, he has this unique fame for being the very first X-Man to die in action. And now, he's back. But what this story shows us so powerfully is that his biggest fight isn't with some big bad villain. Nope, it's against the legend of his own death, and this raw, intense struggle to figure out just who he is now that he's actually alive again.
Everything, and I mean everything in this story comes back to this one line. It's just devastating. So John Proudstar is brought back to life in the new mutant nation of Krakoa, right? But he's not really there. He's more like a ghost, a myth. He's this martyr whose story has been told by literally everyone except him. You can feel how trapped he is by a legacy he never even asked for, and he desperately needs to find out if the man can ever escape the legend.
So for a little background, if you're not caught up on the Krakoan age, mutants have basically beaten death. They have this whole process, the Five, that can bring them back. So John, who died on his second mission with the X-Men, is suddenly yanked back into a world that's been spinning for decades without him.
And that world, well, it doesn't really know the man, does it? It only knows the symbol he became after he died. So what does he do? He just rejects it all. He walks away from the supposed mutant paradise of Krakoa because the answers he's looking for, they're not there. He has to go back home, to his people, to try and find the man he was always supposed to become. So, where do you even start to rebuild yourself from scratch like that? Well, his first step is incredibly powerful. Before he even gets home, he takes control of his own story in the most literal way possible. He designs a new costume. He's tossing out that old suit Charles Xavier gave him and creating something that, for the first time, actually speaks for him.
What's so cool about this is how he does it. He doesn't just put it in order, he writes this detailed, personal letter to Jumbo Carnation, the resident mutant fashion guru, and he lays out every single meaningful detail. You see, this isn't just about looking good in a fight, it's a declaration of who he is. It's his whole journey, right there in the fabric.
In the letter, he explains that the colors, the red, the black, and the yellow, are sacred to his Apache people. He says that with white, they would represent the 4 directions. But check this out. He specifically tells Jumbo to leave the white out. He says he'll add it when I know for sure which direction I'm going. It's this beautiful, honest admission that he's still lost. Okay, but this is the absolute key to the whole thing. He adds turquoise. For his people, turquoise isn't about a direction on a map. It's a concept. It's about strength that comes from the inside. Think about it. After a life and a death defined by other people, first the army, then Xavier, he's finally deciding that his real power, his true strength, is gonna come from himself. And this really gets to the heart of it all. He tells Jumbo to make him something that isn't just one or the other, but a true fusion. For the very first time in his life, John Proudstar is getting to define himself as a man of 2 worlds, and he's fully embracing every part of his heritage. So, armed with this new sense of self, he finally returns to his ancestral home, the reservation in Camp Verde. But that peace he's so desperately looking for, it's nowhere to be found. Instead, he runs headfirst into a real-world conflict that perfectly mirrors the kind of exploitation he's been fighting against his entire life. The scene is just bleak. He gets there, and the reservation is a ghost town. He finds out the local cops have rounded up and arrested the elders, including his incredible, formidable grandmother, Lozen. Why? Because they refused to give up their community's mutants, so the police just took them all. And who's pulling the strings? This shady group called the Heritage Initiative. We get to see their internal emails, and their philosophy is just bone-chilling. They don't see mutants as human beings. They see them as walking, talking natural resources, assets whose X genes are just there to be collected and used for the betterment of the majority. Their plan is this disgusting cocktail of corporate greed and systemic racism. They're using their political pull to literally buy the legal rights to Native American X genes. Then, they work to get those genes legally reclassified as government property. It's basically eminent domain for human genetics, and they're using local cops as their muscle. So of course, this all blows up into a massive confrontation. Thunderbird tracks down the guy in charge, a man named Martinic. And now, the man who spent a lifetime being a symbol for other people has to make a very real, very brutal choice about what kind of man he's actually going to be. And his first instinct? It's just pure, unfiltered Apache rage. Martinic hasn't just kidnapped his family. He's trying to sell his people's bodies for parts.
Thunderbird is ready, right then and there, to exercise his right as a warrior and take his blood.
But just as he's about to deliver that final blow, his grandmother Lozin stops him. And her logic is just ice-cold and undeniable. She says, sure, with your mutant powers, you might get away with killing Martinek. But us, the community you're trying to protect, we're not bulletproof. We will become the targets.
This is it. This is the moment of truth. His whole life he's been an outcast, a fighter, a loner. But now he's being asked to think not just as a warrior seeking revenge, but as a protector. He has to weigh his own personal rage against the safety of his entire family and his people.
He makes his choice. He lets Martinek live, but he delivers this absolutely chilling warning. See, this isn't about forgiveness. It's a power move. He exposes Martinek for what he is, and in doing so, he demonstrates a power that's so much greater than just brute force. It's control. True strength isn't killing your enemy. It's making him live with the consequences.
With the fight over, the story shifts back to John's inner world. He's faced down this ugly external threat, and in doing so, it seems like he's finally found the key to that peace he's been searching for.
His grandmother gives him the one thing he left Krakoa to find: validation. She looks at him and tells him she doesn't see a conflict. She sees a brave man, her grandson, who is both Apache and mutant. He doesn't have to choose a side. He can just be.
And with that acceptance, the healing can finally begin. We get this really touching, emotional reunion with his younger brother James, you know him as Warpath, who grew up only knowing John as a dead hero, a legend. For the first time, you see this family starting to actually put the pieces back together.
And this is the real climax of his entire journey. John finally gets it. His two identities, Apache and mutant, they aren't two different problems he has to choose between. They're two peoples who are both being targeted by men like Martinek. And he realizes he doesn't have to pick a side. He's going to fight every battle. He's going to be the defender for all of his people.
And you know, it's really important to mention what was happening behind the scenes here. The comic actually includes a special thanks to the artist, David Cutler, who is a member of the Qualipu Micmac First Nation. His thoughtful, authentic redesign of Thunderbird's costume directly inspired and shaped the very story we've just been talking about.
Which really just leaves us with this final thought to chew on. John Proudstar's journey is all about taking back his own narrative from a world that had already written it for him. It's a powerful look at identity, heritage, and representation that kind of forces us to ask ourselves, how do any of us define who we are when the world has already decided for us?